Okay, maybe if you're a Canadiens fan, you are ready for this. If you've been watching the games, you're seeing the progression, you're looking at the lines, you might be looking at this video and saying, yup, inject this into my veins, baby. Feed this into my digestion because I want to get all of it. This is what we wanted to see. But if you're not a Canadiens fan, then you may not have that same sentiment. You may be looking at this saying, wait a minute, what? Really? Today we're talking about the first overall pick in the 2022 NHL Entry Draft, Juraj Slafkovsky. Because I think it's very fair to say that he is finally here. And no, he may not be a top-of-the-line, 80, 90-point guy. He may not be scoring crazy goals like he did at the Olympics in 2022. Maybe he's not going out there and busting everybody up as a combination of like Rick Nash and Eric Lindros. Like, he's not that. But for what he has shown off over the past few weeks, I think it's been pretty good, and a lot of Canadiens fans are going to go out there and rejoice upon me saying that. Now, I get it, Canadiens fans can be annoying. We can be super overbearing about every small thing that a prospect or a young guy has to offer, and it can get a little bit much in the eyes of fans that aren't Habs fans. But for Juraj Slafkovsky, even though there has been a lot of false hope you could debate that has been there over the past few years, this is a guy who, in the past few games, has really showcased the best we have ever seen out of this guy, and who is finally getting the point production to back it all up. Juraj Slafkovsky in this season's worth of play has 12 points in 33 games played, on pace for about 30 points, 10 goals and 20 assists. Now, sure, you could say that the point production is not the best in the world. Sure, he barely beat out his last season's point production metric of 10 points in 39 games played. But the real kicker with Slafkovsky comes when you take a look at his past 5 games. He's literally a point-per-game player in this stint, and it gets even better when you look at just the exact numbers as to where these points are coming from. Juraj Slafkovsky, in his last 2 games played, has had multi-point games in both of them. He scored a goal and an assist against the Minnesota Wild on Thursday, and he scored a goal and an assist against the Chicago Blackhawks yesterday. Make that 4 points in the span of 2 games on back-to-back nights for Juraj Slafkovsky. And these points are not fool's points either. The first goal that he scored yesterday against the Chicago Blackhawks, the first point that he got, was a really nice play where he gets involved in the cycle. The Canadiens are swapping it around, Suzuki to Caulfield. Eventually, the puck gets thrown on goal, and Juraj, who is driving to the net, is there to put in the rebound. The second point for Juraj Slafkovsky on the night was a brilliant play where he's the guy who drives the puck into the offensive zone. For a split second, you started to see Slafkovsky galloping and just forcing his way in, before eventually dumping the puck in and chasing it down himself. He steals the puck in the half boards, eventually it gets centered, Caulfield goes over for the shot, the rebound is picked up by Suzuki, and that is the 4-2 Montreal Canadiens goal, and Juraj Slafkovsky was a very big contributor as to why it got done. This is a player who has driven some really good results over the past few weeks. We've been saying for a while now that Slafkovsky in 23-24 has been so much better than last year. It's just the numbers, the goals, and the assists may not go out there and tell that story. But now, when you acknowledge the 4 points in his most recent 2 nights worth of hockey, it really becomes easier to say, yep, this guy is getting rewarded, finally. Playing on a first line with Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield, the Slafkovsky line, if you wanted to go out there and say that, because that was a thing we did bring up a few years ago, that now, if you wanted to take a look at what some Canadiens fans are saying, the sentiments going around are all very positive. Take a look at the point threads here. This is on the RHAB sub. In 6 fewer games played, Juraj Slafkovsky has set a new career high in points in a season with 11. And then he got his 12th. It's almost like good players improve if we're patient enough to let them. They then say that Slafkovsky is currently tied with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and we're going to talk about that more as the season goes on. In fact, later today I want to talk about PLD and the Gabe Vilardi trade, but that's a sneak preview for a conversation we're going to have soon. The points are not that important as long as his play improves. We can all see what Slafkovsky could be when he'll be at his peak, and it's brilliant. You then had yourselves the post-game thread from last night, Chicago versus Montreal on the Habs sub. Here's the top comment made by MDLT97. Slafkovsky now has back-to-back multi-point games for the first time in his career. 5 points in his last 4 games and 10 in his last 18. Ever since that game versus the Canucks, he has been a completely different player. Nick Suzuki is on a nice little point streak as well, and that top line has been so money. The goals are finally coming from them. It's so nice to have a top line that can reliably control the puck and drive offense. Even in the games they weren't scoring, they were still doing very well with pouring on pressure, but I definitely prefer it when it goes in. Another commenter says here, Slafkovsky is a beast of a player. If he keeps this up and gets to 35-ish points, his development will be on the right track. Great to see that line thriving and finally getting rewarded. Even if he doesn't put up 35 points this year, if he continues to play the way he is, he'll be a first liner for a very long time with this organization. Slav hitting 35 points should not be considered a benchmark of how his development is progressing. Our top line is top-lining so hard lately, it's insane. Josh Anderson is back. Struble has been fantastic. I haven't enjoyed Habs hockey like this for so long now. Slafkovsky has just been doing more and more things right. And if you watch some of the game tape, you watch the shift-by-shift breakdowns, if you compare this to what we saw last year, it's a night and day difference. Slafkovsky is charging more. He's making better plays. He's holding the puck along the boards better. He's timing his pinches more effectively. And he's keeping his head up. He's not getting taken out with blindsided hits where he has his head down by smaller guys anymore. That was a pretty big problem last season, and Slafkovsky has slowly found himself the adaptability to be able to respond to that type of physical play. He's also charging and hitting guys too. I mean, it's almost like this guy decided to play like the 6'3" beast that he is. It's almost like he remembered that he was 230 pounds and that he's got a lot of extra frame on him compared to most NHL players. Playing with somebody who's really small like Cole Caulfield and somebody who's only a tad bigger than Suzuki, it really balances out the size of this line as a whole. And because they're all so smart with the puck, I mean, Suzuki and Caulfield have their magic, Suzuki is scoring all these points, he is just under a point per game, Slafkovsky has found a way to be able to keep up with that. Now this first line, who has been pretty good the past few weeks, is starting to get points. They're putting production up on the board. And for Juraj Slafkovsky, I'm not going to say that 2 points a game is going to be the standard for the rest of the year, but if he's able to get that 30-35 point marker, especially with the terrible start to the season, I feel like this is going to be a really good second sophomore year for Slav. He's already bested his first year production, so technically, whatever he does now, if he goes pointless for the rest of the year, you could say, okay, at least he had more points on the season. But the way he's playing so far, it feels very unlikely that he goes out there and completely tanks his production because he's only gotten better and now he's finally getting rewarded for it. So for Juraj Slafkovsky, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about how he's been making smarter plays, driving to the net more with confidence, he's hitting guys more, he's putting himself in better spots. The only thing you could really say he needs to improve on is his pure sniping ability. I feel like that's been a pretty weak area of his NHL game so far in his young career, but that was a thing that we had seen, for example, at the Olympic Games a few years ago. It's definitely there, it's just rounding out everything in the outer parts of his game definitely is important too, so I could live with it if he ends up not really doing much of that this season. I mean, he's only 18, 19 years old, so there's a lot of time for Slafkovsky to continue getting better. But for now, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, how impressed have you been with the way Juraj Slafkovsky has played this year? He is finally getting points. Suzuki, Caulfield, these guys are all together. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section as to how they've been playing. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.